The name of this book is Becoming Steve Jobs, the evolution of a reckless upstart into a visionary leader. If you'll look carefully, and I need you to keep your finger on page 9, but this is reproduced on page 2, this is the cover. Now, this is the cover of Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. I use Kindle app reading, so I don't have the physical book. So if you look at them carefully, this cover does what every cover I have ever seen ever does. It has the name of the author on the cover. There's no name of the author on the cover of Becoming Steve Jobs. I've never seen that. My conclusion is the main author, and it's a journalist named Bren Schlender. My conclusion is they concluded this book really is all about Steve Jobs and about the man who became Steve Jobs. Now, back to some stories. In 1991, Steve Jobs is cast out. He is building a new computer company that actually was incredibly important but never sold many computers, called Next. And he was getting into a company called Pixar, and Bill Gates was owning the universe. And Schlender puts together a meeting of them. You ought to Google Steve Jobs with Bill Gates, and you'll find these photographs, and they're in this book. And so they end up for a 2.5-hour interview at Steve Jobs' house. If you know anything about Steve Jobs at all, he didn't buy furniture until he could find the right furniture for the house. So this very wealthy man had 2 chairs. 2 chairs in the whole house. And an ottoman. And when you find the picture, Steve Jobs is sitting on one of the chairs, barefoot, jeans, and Bill Gates, I think jeans, but certainly casual, on the ottoman. And this interview is brilliant, and even then, Bill Gates is running the universe. You get the sense Steve Jobs isn't finished. If you know about his famous Stanford commencement address, maybe the best and most quoted commencement address ever, there's a great story in the book. Steve Jobs is getting ready to go to the commencement address. He can't find his parking permit. His wife drives him in the SUV, his kids are in the car. He never accepted speaking engagements except when he was doing one for Apple. He had accepted this. They get there late. It's a huge crowd. Parking is tight. They finally weave together where a policewoman stops them and says, "You can't come in here. We don't have, you have to have a parking certificate." And the wife says, "No, we've got one." And he says, "We've got one. I just couldn't find it." And the policewoman doesn't recognize him. And so she looks in and says, "Why should you be parking here?" And he says, "Because I'm bringing the commencement speaker," says the wife who's driving. And she looks in and says, "Which one of you is the commencement speaker?" Because he's wearing raggedy jeans and a t-shirt and tennis shoes. He makes it in, puts on the robe, and gives the commencement address of a lifetime. Why is this book worth our time? Number one, Apple is the most valuable company in the world. It simply would not have gotten there without Steve Jobs, not at all. He is worthy of close study and reflection. Number two, Steve Jobs went from great success to great failure, back to great success again. How did he change? Why did he change? What made him better? This book provides clues, insights, and some answers. No takeaways. To quote Walter Isaacson, maybe Steve Jobs is simply not replicable. Number two, to Steve Jobs, company was always means to the greatest end product. Becoming Steve Jobs, the evolution of a reckless upstart into a visionary leader. I think it's a book worth reading. Hope you found this useful. Thank you very much.